My sister talked our parents into handing over my savings and made me the bad guy, turning everyone against me, until they accidentally saw a video of her doing. Hi Reddit, it's me, Adam. I'm 37 now, but when I think back to my childhood, it feels like I spent my entire life walking through a storm, while my sister Vanessa stood in the sunshine. She was 3 years older than me, but in our house that tiny age gap made all the difference. She wasn't just the favorite, she was untouchable. If Vanessa got an A on a test, my parents would celebrate like she had just won an Olympic medal. If I got an A, I'd get a speech about how I could do better if I really tried. It was exhausting, but school was just the tip of the iceberg. Vanessa could do anything and get away with it. One summer, when I was 9, my mom spent an entire day making a special cake for a family gathering. Vanessa, ever so careless, knocked it off the counter. My dad laughed and said, "Sweetheart, it's just a cake." A few days later, I spilled a glass of juice while setting the table. My mom snapped, "Adam, you're so careless. You never think before you do anything." I spent the rest of the night in my room. That was the pattern. Vanessa made a mistake. It was an accident. I made the same mistake. It was a flaw in my personality. At first, I thought I was just imagining things. Maybe I was clumsy. Maybe I really did mess up more than she did. But as I got older, I realized the truth. Vanessa didn't just benefit from being the favorite. She worked hard to make sure she stayed the favorite. Started small, missing things from my room. A book I was reading suddenly appearing on her shelf. My new headphones mysteriously breaking after she borrowed them. Little things I could never quite prove. But then, when I was 13, she pulled her first big trick on me. I had been saving money for months, birthday gifts, allowance, even spare change from under couch cushions. I kept it in an old shoebox under my bed. I wasn't sure what I was saving for, but it was mine, and that felt important. Then one day, I came home to find my mom waiting for me in the living room. Her arms crossed, my shoebox in her hands. "Do you want to explain why you stole from your sister?" I froze. "What?" Vanessa stood behind her, fake tears rolling down her cheeks. "I knew it had to be him. I've been looking everywhere for my money. I can't believe you'd do this to me, Adam." Couldn't even breathe. My money, my savings, my dreams. I begged them to believe me. I swore up and down that it was mine. But Vanessa had planned everything too well. My parents didn't even hesitate before siding with her. "You're grounded for a month," my dad said, "and you'll give Vanessa back every cent." That night, as I lay in bed, I heard Vanessa on the phone, laughing. It was so easy. He's such an idiot. Mom and Dad didn't even question it. That was the moment I realized. Vanessa wasn't just lucky. She was playing the game, and I was the pawn. And that was just the beginning. By the time I turned 15, I had stopped trying to win. What was the point? Vanessa got whatever she wanted, and I was always the problem. She got praise, freedom, and gifts. I got lectures about how I needed to be more like my sister. The worst part wasn't just the favoritism. It was how calculated Vanessa was. She didn't just sit back and enjoy being the golden child. She worked hard to keep me in the role of the family disappointment. One of her favorite tricks was setting me up. Like the time she broke our neighbor's window. It was the middle of summer, and I was in the backyard, minding my own business, when I heard glass shatter. A few seconds later, Vanessa stormed outside, her face full of fake anger. "Mom! Adam just threw a rock through Mrs. Klein's window." I barely had time to react before my dad exploded. I hadn't done anything, but Vanessa was already crying, swearing she saw me do it. It didn't matter that I wasn't even near the house when it happened. It didn't matter that Mrs. Klein wasn't even home and couldn't confirm the story. My dad didn't ask for my side. He didn't even hesitate before grounding me for the rest of the summer. That was Vanessa's power. She didn't just manipulate people. She made reality bend in her favor. But it wasn't just about getting me in trouble. She enjoyed making me look bad. At one of her birthday parties, she convinced our cousin Jeremy to push me into the pool fully clothed. I scrambled out, dripping wet, humiliated, while Vanessa and her friends laughed like it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. "Relax, Adam," my mom said when I complained. It was just a joke. It was never a joke to Vanessa. By 16, I was done trying to compete. I kept to myself, spent most of my time in my room or at the library, anywhere I could be alone. Books became my escape, stories where the underdog sometimes won. But Vanessa didn't stop. She found new ways to make me the bad guy. Like the time she got caught sneaking out. One night, my parents stormed into my room, furious. "Do you think we're stupid, Adam?" my dad snapped. I sat up, confused. "What?" "Vanessa caught you sneaking out. She said she tried to stop you, but you wouldn't listen." I blinked. Vanessa had been sneaking out for years. I knew because I'd seen her climb back in through her window more times than I could count. But she had never gotten caught before. And now, suddenly, when our dad finally noticed someone was sneaking out, she pinned it on me. I tried to argue. I begged them to check her window, to look at the texts on her phone. Anything to prove it wasn't me. But Vanessa had already set the scene. "You always make excuses, Adam," my mom sighed. "You need to take responsibility for your actions." They grounded me for a month. Vanessa. She got off without a scratch. That night, I sat in my room, staring at the ceiling, and realized something. Vanessa wasn't just lucky. She wasn't just manipulative. She was dangerous. And if I ever wanted a chance at a real life, I had to do something about it. I had to fight back. But first, I needed proof. I decided that if I was ever going to break free from Vanessa's web of lies, I needed proof. She had spent years twisting reality, making me out to be the family screw-up while she played the perfect daughter. No one ever questioned her because she never let them. But I was done being her scapegoat. So, I started keeping track of everything. I bought a cheap notebook and wrote down every lie, every setup, every manipulation. Dates, times, details. Anything that could help me prove what she was doing. It felt ridiculous at first, like I was some conspiracy theorist keeping a journal of Vanessa's crimes. But as the pages filled up, I started to see a pattern. She always struck when our parents were already frustrated. If my dad had a bad day at work, she'd drop a casual concern about my behavior at dinner. If my mom was stressed, she'd find some way to pin her mistakes on me, knowing they wouldn't take my side. She was methodical, calculated. I needed more than just notes. So I got a recording device. It wasn't fancy, just a cheap little gadget I could hide in my room or keep in my pocket. The first time I used it, I caught Vanessa on the phone with her best friend, bragging about how she made our parents think I'd skipped school. I replayed that recording over and over, the proof of her lies finally in my hands. But I didn't stop there. I started keeping copies of text messages. Screenshots of times when she'd say one thing to me and another to my parents. I even convinced our cousin Jeremy to admit on video that Vanessa had put him up to pushing me in the pool. Piece by piece, I built my case. And then, the perfect opportunity came. Vanessa had been dating a guy named Luke for a while, a rich, popular type who thought the world revolved around him. They were the kind of couple that looked perfect on the outside, but behind closed doors, Vanessa hated him. She told her friends he was clingy and boring, but she liked the attention. One night, they had a huge fight and broke up. The next morning, Vanessa stormed into the house, furious. "I know you said something to him, Adam," she snapped. I frowned. "What?" She got in my face. "Don't play dumb. Someone told Luke I was cheating. And I know it was you." I laughed. I hadn't said a word to Luke, but I knew Vanessa had been flirting with other guys behind his back. She was mad at me because, for the first time, she had lost control of the story. So, she did what she always did. She made me the villain. She told our parents I was spreading lies about her. She told our entire school that I was jealous and wanted to ruin her life. And because she had spent years making sure people believed she was the perfect one and I was the troublemaker, they believed her. I started noticing classmates whispering when I walked past, teachers watching me more closely. Then one afternoon, 2 of Luke's football buddies cornered me in the locker room. "Think it's funny messing with people's relationships, loser?" One of them sneered. Before I could answer, a fist hit me in the stomach. I doubled over, gasping. That was all it took. A rumor Vanessa spread, and suddenly, I was getting beaten up for something I didn't even do. That night, I sat in my room, ice pack on my ribs, replaying the recordings of Vanessa laughing about her lies. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. I wanted justice, and for the first time in my life, I was ready to take her down. I spent the next few weeks carefully planning my next move. I had enough proof to expose Vanessa. I just needed the right moment. She had spent years making me look like the unstable one, the liar, the troublemaker. If I lashed out too soon, she'd spin it to her advantage. No, this had to be perfect. Then, fate handed me the opportunity on a silver platter. Our parents decided to host a big family gathering, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. Vanessa, of course, was thrilled. She loved an audience. It was the perfect setting for one of her performances. I arrived early, slipping my recording device into my pocket, ready for whatever she threw at me. Sure enough, halfway through dinner, Vanessa struck. "I'm really worried about Adam," she said suddenly, her voice dripping with fake concern. The room went quiet. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think he's been having episodes lately. I clenched my jaw. Episodes? Our aunt frowned. "What do you mean?" Vanessa sighed, lowering her voice just enough to make it seem like she was trying to protect me. "He's been so angry lately. Unpredictable. He yells at me all the time. The other day, I was just trying to talk to him, and he completely snapped." I watched as heads turned toward me, judgment already forming in their eyes. This was classic Vanessa. A calculated attack delivered in the most reasonable way, making me sound like a ticking time bomb. But this time I was ready. I pulled out my phone. "That's funny," I said, my voice calm, "because I actually recorded our last conversation." Vanessa's face froze. I hit play. Her own voice filled the room. "Mom and Dad are so gullible. They actually think I care about Adam. It's hilarious. They'll always believe me over him. He's just too stupid to realize it." Silence. Vanessa's face turned ghost white. Our parents stared at her, mouths slightly open. Our grandmother, who had always adored Vanessa, looked horrified. "I have more," I said, flipping through my files. "Like this one, where she brags about framing me for sneaking out." I pressed play again. Adam didn't even see it coming. I just said I saw him sneaking out, and boom. He was grounded for a month. Too easy. Aunt Linda covered her mouth. Uncle Kevin swore under his breath. Vanessa panicked. That's fake. He edited it. He's just trying to make me look bad." But I wasn't done. I pulled out my notebook, flipping to a page with printed screenshots. These are texts Vanessa sent to her friends about how she planned to pin Luke's breakup on me. I turned to our cousin Jeremy. "Remember when you pushed me into the pool? She told you to, didn't she?" Jeremy shifted uncomfortably. "Yeah," he mumbled. Every eye in the room turned back to Vanessa. She was trapped. "You lied to us?" my mom whispered, her voice shaking. Our dad, normally quiet and reserved, spoke up. "Vanessa," he said, his voice cold. "Tell me the truth. Right now." Vanessa's lip trembled. She opened her mouth, then closed it. And in that moment I knew. She was out of lies. For the first time in years, she had nowhere to run. "Get out," my dad said. Vanessa flinched. "Dad, please." I said, "Get out." She looked around, realizing no one was on her side anymore. Her perfect little kingdom had collapsed. She stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. And just like that, the golden child had finally fallen. But I knew this wasn't over. Vanessa had spent her whole life controlling the story, and she would try to get it back. But this time I wasn't going to let her. The house was dead silent after Vanessa left. The weight of everything that had just unfolded hung over the room like a storm cloud. For the first time in my life, people weren't looking at me like I was the problem. They were looking at Vanessa's empty chair, trying to process the truth. My mom was pale, her hands gripping the table like she needed something solid to hold on to. My dad just sat there, jaw clenched, staring at the floor. My grandmother, who had always defended Vanessa, whispered, My God! What have we done? For years, I had dreamed of this moment. The moment they would finally see her for who she really was. But now that it had actually happened, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt drained. I stood up. I think we're done here. My dad finally looked at me, something unreadable in his eyes. Adam, I don't even know what to say. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then don't say anything. And with that, I walked out. I didn't hear from Vanessa for weeks. I expected her to do what she always did, spin the story, but this time she was cornered. There was no way to lie her way out of the recordings, the texts, the witnesses. But Vanessa was nothing if not relentless. One afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. I hope you're happy. Vanessa's voice spat through the speaker. I sighed. Vanessa, don't. You ruined my life, Adam, she shrieked. Do you even understand what you've done? I pinched the bridge of my nose. You did this to yourself. You think you're the hero? You think everyone's on your side now? She let out a bitter laugh. Give it time. They'll forget what I did. But they'll never forget that you turned against your own sister. I almost let her words get to me. Almost. But then I remembered something. For years, Vanessa had made me believe I was the villain. That I was always the problem. That no matter what, people would choose her over me. And maybe for a long time that had been true. But not anymore. I'm done, Vanessa, I said firmly. Don't call me again. And then I hung up. At first, my parents didn't know how to handle the truth. My mom called me a few times, sounding lost. She kept saying things like, I just don't understand why she did this. As if she was looking for a way to excuse Vanessa's actions. My dad, on the other hand, had gone quiet. He didn't reach out at all, which was fine by me. I wasn't ready to have a heart-to-heart about how he had spent years enabling Vanessa's behavior. But little by little, the cracks in their blind loyalty started to show. One night, my mom left me a voicemail. Her voice was thick, like she had been crying. I don't know how to fix this, Adam. But I want to try. I know we let you down. I know I let you down. I'm so sorry. For the first time in my entire life, she sounded like she actually saw me. I didn't call her back right away. I wasn't ready. But I saved the message. Vanessa, on the other hand, wasn't done causing damage. A month after the family gathering, I got an email from a lawyer. Vanessa was threatening to sue me for defamation. I stared at the email, almost laughing. Of course, she was trying to make herself the victim again. I wasn't stupid. I knew lawsuits like this were usually empty threats, meant to intimidate someone into backing down. But just to be sure, I reached out to a lawyer of my own, a no-nonsense woman named Evelyn Harper. After I explained everything, she raised an eyebrow. So, she's suing you for telling the truth? I smirked. Pretty much. She flipped through the file of evidence I had compiled and shook her head. She has no case. If she actually takes this to court, she'll just embarrass herself. So, I let Evelyn send a response, laying out every single piece of evidence we'd bring to trial if Vanessa actually wanted to go through with it. A week later, I got another email. Vanessa was dropping the lawsuit. She knew she had lost. But what shocked me the most was what happened next. She disappeared. She deactivated her social media. She stopped reaching out to our parents. She cut off most of her old friends. It was like, without her golden child image, she didn't know who she was anymore. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. After Vanessa dropped the lawsuit and vanished from everyone's radar, I expected to feel triumphant. I had spent years being crushed under the weight of her lies, her manipulation, her control, and now, for the first time, she was the one crumbling. But instead of victory, all I felt was exhaustion. Even though Vanessa was gone, the damage she had caused still lingered. My relationships with my parents were strained, and my extended family was still awkward around me. Some had been shocked into silence after the truth came out, while others just avoided me altogether. Probably too ashamed that they had blindly believed her for so long. One afternoon, I got a text from my mom. Mom, hey Adam, your dad and I are thinking of seeing a counselor to talk through everything. We want to do better. We want to make things right. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. They had let Vanessa ruin my life for years. They had chosen her lies over my truth, again and again. Shouldn't they have figured this out before she was exposed? But then I thought about all the times I had wished they would wake up. And now that they finally had, could I just walk away? I didn't respond right away, but later that night, I sent a short reply. I think that's a good idea. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. As the weeks passed, I started to breathe again. For the first time in years, I didn't have to be on edge, waiting for Vanessa's next move. I wasn't constantly defending myself, or trying to prove I wasn't the villain she had made me out to be. I focused on work, on my friends, on living. And just when I was starting to believe Vanessa was truly out of my life, she showed up one last time. It happened on a Sunday morning. I was at a coffee shop near my apartment, scrolling through my phone, when I felt someone slide into the chair across from me. I looked up. It was Vanessa. I almost didn't recognize her. She looked rough, hair unstyled, dark circles under her eyes. No sign of the put-together, polished person she used to be. She folded her hands on the table. "Hey, Adam." I stared at her. "What do you want?" She sighed. I don't know. I wanted to talk." I scoffed. "About what? How you tried to ruin my life. How you sued me. How you made everyone think I was the problem for years." She winced. "I know I messed up." I let out a bitter laugh. "Messed up? Vanessa, you built your entire life around destroying mine. You enjoyed it." She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time ever, she didn't have a quick comeback, a deflection, a lie to spin. Instead, she looked down at the table. "I don't know how to be anything else." I blinked. "What?" She swallowed hard. "My whole life I had to be the best, the favorite, the one everyone believed. I didn't know how to be anything but that. And when you finally exposed me, when people stopped trusting me, I realized, I don't know who I am without it." For a split second, I saw something I had never seen in her before. Regret. Or maybe just fear. I exhaled sharply. "Vanessa, that's not my problem. You made your choices, and now you have to deal with them." She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I know." For a long moment we just sat there, the weight of years between us. Then she pushed back her chair. "I won't bother you again." And just like that, she was gone. I sat there for a long time after she left, staring at the empty seat across from me. Part of me had wanted some big moment, some final confrontation where she apologized, admitted everything, begged for forgiveness. But the truth was, I didn't need that. I didn't need her remorse. I didn't need her validation. For the first time in my life, I didn't need anything from Vanessa. I had won. And more importantly, I was finally free. Vanessa disappeared after that morning at the coffee shop, and this time it seemed permanent. No more schemes, no more twisted lies, no more last-minute attempts to control the narrative. It was like she had finally accepted that she had lost. And yet, even though she was gone, the damage she left behind still lingered. I spent months trying to undo the version of me that Vanessa had built. The angry, unstable, reckless troublemaker she had painted me as. Even with the truth out in the open, people didn't just forget the years of manipulation overnight. My parents were trying, I'll give them that. They started therapy not just for themselves, but for us. At first, I didn't want anything to do with it. The idea of sitting in a room while they tried to explain away decades of blind loyalty to Vanessa made me sick. But eventually, I agreed to one session, just to hear them out. It was awkward, painful. My mom cried within the first 10 minutes, and my dad sat there in silence, his jaw tight like he was holding something back. It wasn't until the therapist, a woman named Dr. Ellison, asked a simple question that things cracked open. "Adam," she said, "what do you wish your parents had done differently?" I let out a bitter laugh. "How much time do you have?" She gave me a small smile. "Start with one thing." I swallowed hard. I wanted to yell, to list everything they had ignored. Every lie, every punishment I never deserved. Every time they had looked at me with disappointment while Vanessa smirked behind their backs. But instead, I just said, "I wish you believed in me the way you believed in her." Silence. Then my dad, the man who had never been emotional, the man who had always seen things in black and white, let out a shaky breath and said, "So do I." And for the first time I saw it, the regret, the realization of just how much he had failed me. I didn't forgive them that day. I didn't suddenly let go of everything Vanessa had done, of everything they had allowed her to do. But for the first time I saw that maybe, just maybe, they were starting to see me. And that was a start. With Vanessa gone, I finally had the space to focus on my life. I threw myself into work, taking on bigger projects, proving to myself that I wasn't the failure she had spent years making me out to be. I started going out more, reconnecting with old friends, the ones Vanessa had slowly pulled away from me over time. One night, my cousin Jeremy called. The same cousin who had pushed me into the pool at Vanessa's request. "Hey man," he said awkwardly. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." I let out a breath. Yeah, me too. And somehow that felt like enough. Then, 6 months later, I got a call from my mom. "It's Vanessa," she said, her voice quiet. "She's in trouble." I frowned. "What kind of trouble?" Mom hesitated. She's broke, Adam. She lost her job. Her friends cut her off. She's been bouncing between places, but now she has nowhere to go. She asked if she could stay with us for a while. I felt something in my stomach twist. I knew what she was about to ask before she even said it. "She wants to see you," Mom continued. "She wants to talk." I exhaled sharply. "Mom, no. She says she's changed," Mom pleaded. "That she wants to make things right." I rubbed my temples. "Vanessa always says what she thinks people want to hear." Mom sighed. "I know. But I also know she's alone, and she's scared. And no matter what she's done, she's still your sister." A year ago, that argument would have worked. I would have felt guilty, obligated. I would have let Vanessa weasel her way back into my life, because deep down, part of me had always hoped she would change. But I wasn't that person anymore. "I hope she figures her life out," I said. "But I'm not a part of it anymore." And for the first time, I meant it. Vanessa moved back in with my parents, but I kept my distance. I heard things here and there. How she struggled to find a new job. How people in town didn't trust her anymore. She was finally facing the consequences of her own actions. And me? I was finally free. Not just from her, but from the guilt. The need to prove myself. The weight of being the family disappointment. I had my life back, and I wasn't going to waste it. Vanessa moving back in with my parents didn't change anything for me. I kept my distance, and for once I didn't feel guilty about it. It was strange at first, this freedom, this sense that I didn't owe her anything. But the more time passed, the lighter I felt. For the first time in my life, my choices weren't about her. I focused on work, and after months of proving myself, I got a promotion. I started traveling, something I had always wanted to do but never let myself enjoy. I even went on a few dates, real ones, without the paranoia that Vanessa would somehow find a way to ruin them. Meanwhile, Vanessa's life kept falling apart. Mom still called me with updates even though I never asked for them. I think she still believed that one day Vanessa and I would reconcile. That somehow, after everything, we would go back to being just siblings. "She's been applying for jobs," Mom said one evening, "but no one's calling her back." "She burned too many bridges," I said simply. Mom sighed. "I know. She's not handling it well." I could only imagine. Vanessa had built her entire identity around being better than everyone else. She thrived on admiration, on being seen as perfect. Now that people knew the truth, that admiration was gone. And without it, she was lost. Then, one evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Unknown. I need to talk to you. Please." I didn't have to ask who it was. For a long time, I just stared at the message. The old me would have answered right away. I would have wanted to believe she was reaching out because she had changed, because she was finally ready to take responsibility. But I wasn't the old me anymore. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I blocked the number. Days turned into weeks. My parents were still adjusting to the reality of who Vanessa really was, but they were trying. My dad, once so firm in his belief that Vanessa could do no wrong, had finally admitted to me, I don't know how I missed it for so long, and I could tell it bothered him. My mom was still struggling. She wanted to believe Vanessa could fix herself, that she could somehow undo years of manipulation. But I knew better. Vanessa wasn't ready to change. She was just desperate. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from my cousin Jeremy. You're not gonna believe this, he said. Vanessa's moving. I blinked. Moving where? Out of town. Some new city. She says she needs a fresh start. I didn't know how to respond to that. A fresh start? That was Vanessa's solution? Not apologizing, not owning what she did, just running away? Jeremy hesitated. Dude, I think she finally realized she can't fix things here. I sat with that thought for a long time. Vanessa had spent years controlling everything. How people saw her, how they saw me, how our family functioned. And now, for the first time, she had no control. Maybe that was enough of a consequence. A week later, my mom called me one last time about Vanessa. She's leaving tomorrow, she said quietly. She wanted to see you before she goes. I took a deep breath. No, Mom, she sighed. And for once, she didn't argue. I figured you'd say that. She made her choices, I said. And I made mine. Mom was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I just want you to know. I see that now. And I respect it. And that, more than Vanessa leaving, more than anything else, felt like a victory. The next morning, Vanessa packed up her car and drove away. No grand speech, no dramatic farewell. Just gone. And I didn't look back. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't living in Vanessa's shadow anymore. I was living for myself. Vanessa leaving felt anticlimactic. No big confrontation, no last attempt to manipulate me. Just silence. I thought I'd feel relieved, or maybe even victorious. But instead, all I felt was nothing. For so many years, Vanessa had been a constant in my life. A toxic, suffocating presence, but a presence nonetheless. Without her, there was this empty space where the battle used to be. It was strange, but I knew it was a good thing. I didn't have to prove myself anymore. I didn't have to watch my back. I could just be. My relationship with my parents remained complicated. My mom still struggled with guilt. My dad, never one for long conversations, was trying in his own way. A few months after Vanessa left, he invited me to lunch. It was the first time in years he had asked to see me alone. We sat across from each other in an old diner, awkwardly sipping coffee. Finally, he cleared his throat and said, I owe you an apology. I looked up, caught off guard. For what? For everything. He exhaled. For not seeing what was right in front of me. For not protecting you. I thought I was being fair. I thought I was raising you both the same. But I wasn't. And I'm sorry. I had spent years dreaming of hearing those words. But now that I had them, I realized something. I didn't need them. I had already moved on. Still, I nodded. Thanks, Dad. He gave me a small, almost sad smile. I just hope it's not too late for us. I thought about that for a moment. About the years of resentment, the pain, the damage Vanessa had caused not just to me, but to all of us. No, I said. It's not too late. And for the first time, I actually believed it. Life went on. The longer Vanessa stayed gone, the less people talked about her. My family adjusted to a version of reality where she wasn't the center of attention. My parents were still working on their guilt, but at least they were working on it. As for me, I finally had the life I wanted. I traveled more. I focused on my career, my friendships, my happiness. I even met someone who only knew me, not the version of me that Vanessa had created. And it was good. No more lies. No more manipulation. No more Vanessa. For years, I had been trapped in her shadow, defined by the way she twisted my life, by the way she controlled everyone around us. But now I was free, and I wasn't looking back.